Good afternoon. Oh, we could do a little better than that. Good afternoon. We're appreciative of each and every one of you taking time for this particular special call meeting, and we will now be in the hands of our very capable city clerk.
This is the special call meeting of the Mobile City Council, Thursday, July 9th. Please stand for our invocation, led by Reverend Julius Bryant, Sweet Pilgrim Baptist Church.
Will you bow your heads with me in prayer? Our Father and God, we come today. We thank you. God, we thank you in this time of uncertainty. We thank you, God, in this time where confusion is on the rise. But Father, we thank you because your word told us in everything to give thanks. For this is our will concerning you. We ask now in the name of Jesus that your presence be made known in this place today. As we discuss issues, God, that are full of passion. Father, we ask that you be the peace and that calm. We ask in the name of Jesus, God, that you continue to bless us. As your word declared, it's good for us to dwell together in unity. Father, although we may not be united, we ask that you unite us now. You said in your word that we can't walk together except we be agreed. We pray that you bring agreement today. We lift up this mayor of this city. We lift up this city councilmen and women. We lift up the chief of police today. And God, we lift up these concerned citizens. We pray, God, that we can come together, that you would give us wisdom, that you would give us the knowledge and understanding, that we may understand one another and know that you've only created one race of people. We thank you for it right now. We give you praise as we enter into this meeting. Father, we ask that you have your way and give us peace. In Jesus' matchless name we pray. Amen.
Roll call, President Manzi,
Here.
Vice President Small,
Here.
Councilmember Richardson,
Here.
Councilmember Williams, Councilmember Daves,
Here.
Councilmember Rich, here, Councilmember Gregory, here. Statement of rules.
Again, good afternoon, and we appreciate all of you all's attendance and interest in this very important subject matter. We first would ask that you would turn off or silence all electronic devices upon entering the meeting. Any person desiring to address the council must sign in indicating the resolution, ordinance, appeal, or public hearing agenda item before entering the council meeting. When addressing the council, the speaker must clearly state for the record both your name and your address. For this particular meeting today, we had some certain parameters, and they are thusly. Residents of the city and police jurisdiction will be allowed to speak for 2 minutes on residents of the city and police jurisdiction will be able to speak for 2 minutes on issues of concern as it relates between the police and community relations. Items mentioned specifically were lethal force, crisis intervention, de-escalation tactics, body cameras, and types of non-lethal weapons. Those interested in speaking at the meeting were asked to sign up with the city clerk's office no later than 2 p.m. on July the 9th, which is today, and specific questions should be submitted by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, July 7th, and it lists the clerk's name and email. Based on continued guidance from state and local public health experts, a limited number of persons will be allowed entry to the meeting at one time to allow for proper social distancing. Citizens attending will also be able to attend or view the meeting on the atrium monitors and will be called in to address the council on their item of interest. Several persons have followed these instructions, have given the city clerk proper notice, have also given her a litany of questions. Those persons who also requested to speak will have their opportunity to reference what they've asked for and also make their commentary within that 2-minute time period. But we want to ensure and assure everyone that if you ask a question, specifically if it's in writing, we will make certain that those questions are over to our police chief and our public safety director so that each person's individual question will hopefully have the ability to be answered. That's one of the goals of this particular exercise. As we have all seen, we as a country have some work to do in ensuring a continued good and positive relationship between our communities and law enforcement. That's exactly why we're here today. As a result of where we are, the moment we're in, and I believe the movement that we're in, citizens have asked that we convene this particular session. Our leaders of law enforcement have been eager to engage, to listen, so that we can make certain that we're making progress and that we're moving in the right direction as Mobilians. And so we're here to discuss ways that we can continue to work together and, most importantly, communicate better for the betterment of all persons. We look forward to input from our citizens. We look forward to dialogue from our leadership of our police department and our public safety director. And we look forward, most importantly, to continuing this discussion as needed for the time needed in order for us to get things where we want them to be. And so those are our rules. We are appreciative of those of you who could make it out on this Thursday afternoon for such an important subject matter. And we ask that each and every one of you would participate. Thank you.
So we're ready.
We're going to, before we would move forward with communications from citizens, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Public Safety Director, and whatever order you all would want to go,
Okay.
let's hear from you all.
Well, thank you. I certainly appreciate everyone being here today. This is, I would say, as you look in the crowd, it's a good turnout, especially based on social distancing that we're all observing. President Manzi has expressed exactly the reasons why we're here, what we hope to achieve, and I'll remind him to turn off his cell phone. But you know, what we're here really is to listen, and you'll see that we have several note takers down here at the front table. The quest of every mayor and the quest of every city council is to try to improve their community. And the only way we can do that is by working with one another to achieve a better outcome. So we look forward to hearing what you have to say. At this time, I'll flip to Director James Barber and let him make a couple of comments from his perspective.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilman President Manzi. Let me quickly, I guess, introduce, certainly everybody is familiar, Chief Batiste is here to listen. My assistant is here, again, to make sure that we are taking notes. And the legal advisor from the police department, that's from the city attorney's office, Wanda Rahman, is also here for any legal issues that need to be answered. We are certainly here to listen and would like to hear the feedback. I also would like to introduce to the city council a man that probably needs no introduction, but our former United States Attorney Kenyon Brown, who is sitting behind me. Kenyon Brown and I had a long history as the police chief working together on various projects within our community, as well as policies, practices, and training of police. And so we have engaged him because of our long history together and his incredible credentials to be part of the process of reviewing these police reform initiatives that are going on, as well as, and specifically, the use of force policy of Mobile PD. And so we'll be seeing more of Kenyon. He's here as well to listen and take notes. We did also bring out in the atrium the internal affairs investigators. Should there be uninvestigated complaints from people, And so they'd be readily accessible to anybody that would like to file a formal complaint. That being said, we are here to listen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Public Safety Director and Chief Batiste. Was there anything you'd like to? No? Great. Glad to have you here. Madam City Clerk?
Our first speaker, Mr. President and Council and Mayor, is Dr. Ron Richardson. Again, when you come to the podium, come to the microphone, please state your name and your address.
Good day and God bless.
Good day. God bless
I am Dr. Raul Richardson, but I'm certain most of you already know that. My address is 650 Clinic Drive, Mobile, Alabama, 36608. Thank you for this opportunity, Mayor, City Council, Chief Batiste, Barbara. It's my pleasure to be here. But I can't breathe. I'm here because I can't breathe. I'm here not to promote a singular idea, effort, or initiative as it relates to abolishing police, defunding police, or 8 can't wait. I am here because I can't breathe. I can't breathe, but nevertheless I'm here. And I offer myself to do a deep dive into what might represent an appropriate approach to the issues that we are responding to in this moment with this movement. I believe that there can be thoughtful and deep and intelligent dives into all of these possible opportunities that present themselves to us. And while President Manzi said one thing in particular, for which I do agree, we are here to listen, and we are here to be heard, and we're here to have a discussion, but all of those things will do us no good, President Manzi, without substantive policy reform and change. Now, the fact of the matter is, the City Council and the Mayor work for us, the citizens of this community. We speak often of transparency, but at the same time, accountability is what's promoted this moment in time. I can't breathe, and I will not be able to breathe until Black Lives Matter. And finally, I would say my ask is that you consider reviving the Community Civilian Review Board. The fact that it's dissipated or waned, as some of the adjectives I've heard relative to that, represent the fact that somehow or another we have failed this community if in fact it's not currently in force. And I don't believe that you need one more person to say I can't breathe before we have an opportunity to physically engage civilians in a way that does not require them to be laying on a mortician slab. Now, in fairness to Mobile Police Department, the issues that face this nation are not necessarily representative in our community. Nevertheless, I can't breathe. And I will not be able to breathe until we have a meaningful, substantive dialogue that promotes change that's reflective of what the community needs. And all of you, no matter what district you represent, are charged with accomplishing that. A failure to do anything less will result in other types of change. And at some point or another, I will breathe.
Thank you, Dr. Richardson.
Devin Duvier or Dovier. Okay, Devin is not here.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be a 30-second warning. This is something that's kind of new. We were expecting and received a big turnout. And 2 minutes is what's going to be allowed unless there are questions asked by the council. So when you hear the first beep, you have 30 seconds to wrap up your comments. Written comments will always be accepted if you have other things to say. And Dr. Richardson, good to have you here. If you're willing, you can be my appointee on that board.
Thank you, Councilman Williams. I appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, it appears that Devin is not here. Devin did submit questions. Everyone has a copy of those. Antonio Moore.
Yes, my name is Antonio Moore. My address is 6072 Highland Circle North. Ms. Rich is my councilwoman. And I had 2 questions today I wanted to ask. The first involved de-escalation techniques that the police department could use. When a police officer shows up at a scene, I think it's their job, their duty to make sure that they turn down the heat of what's going on. Like the situation I ran into at the statue that everyone knows about. I had a lieutenant come up to me and I tried to address him to engage the need to de-escalate the situation, but he didn't follow any of the techniques that would result in a de-escalation. He just pretty much turned up the heat and made things a lot worse than they should have been. He didn't listen to me. He didn't want to hear what I had to say. When I tried to read something to him, he rolled the window up on me. He wouldn't let me talk to him. When he got out of his car, I asked who was in charge. He went and talked to the councilwoman who I called. And when I tried to talk to him, he wouldn't let me say anything. He just kept saying that you need to listen to me. You need to stop talking. Don't say anything. Don't interrupt me. And when I told him to listen to me, he just told me, you know what you can do? You can go back across the street with your friends. So that didn't solve anything. So I think that the police department needs to work on things that need to, like procedures and policies that make sure something like that doesn't happen with the general public. The other thing I want to talk about is body cameras. I brought this up to the city council also a while ago. When it comes to body cameras, if a supervisor or like a sergeant, lieutenant, captain, whatever, if they're out on patrol, they need to have body cams on, because if they run into a situation with someone in the public, you would want that person, you won't want a situation where it's my words against a police captain or a police sergeant or a lieutenant, because in the eyes of the public, they're probably going to take that person's word over mine. And that's not how it should work, but in society, that's how it does work, which is sad to say. So I would say that also I want to know if there's anything that the city council can do that can make it so sergeants and above, when they're out on patrol, out of the office for any reason, can they be required to wear body cams? And I had a third question about the city council, but because of the 2 minutes, the city advisory board, but because of the 2 minutes, I will have to wait till another day to say that. I'm done.
You gonna answer that question on de-escalation?
Did you all? No? Oh.
Well, I mean, I'll comment quickly that the chief and I have both met with Antonio Moore about his concerns. There is a formal complaint being investigated to deal with the complaint. The issue of body cams, again, all of our policy and procedure are under review at this point. So,
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
You all have copies of his questions also that included the question that he didn't address. Tiffany Trotter.
Miss Tiffany Trotter.
You can come down, want it? It's up to you. I'm gonna want some more answers on
Madam Clerk, can you tell the next person who will be following Tiffany so it may not take quite as long?
The next person would be Alexander Tapia.
Okay. I didn't actually intend to speak, but I submitted questions. Tiffany Trotter, 1507 Forest Circle, Mobile, Alabama, 36605. So essentially going back to my question as well about body cameras for supervisors and above, I understand since they are spending the majority of their shift in the office, right? But it should be whenever they're out patrolling, and definitely if they address a civilian in any way, shape, or manner, even if it's just asking a simple question. They need to have a body camera on. There needs to be a clear indicator that they have a body camera on. So my second question as well, and while I know the city council and the mayor, I believe, do not have the power as of now to address this, but why does the Mobile Police Department not have their policy and procedural manuals made public? If we can go to our schools, our children's schools, if I can walk in there and ask for a disciplinary and contract, manual for if my child misbehaves or if my teacher does something in a certain way, shape, or manner, there is a line of procedure, to handle those issues. It goes from a warning to a conference to suspension, etc. Where is that in the Mobile Police Department? The NAACP and the Alabama ACLU have requested this for over 2 years, as well as outside sources. It's been an issue of security. What is the issue of security? I yield my time.
You still have 30 seconds, ma'am.
Yes, you still have
30 seconds.
You still have 30 seconds, Ms. Trotter.
Okay, that's fine. I yield my time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Alexander Tapia, and following Alexander Tapia is Roxanne Isom.
Mr.
Mr.
President,
Richardson?
we have gotten numerous of complaints in the mail regarding body cameras. And I think we can probably hear it over and over again. I think it's a major issue, and either we have to come back to it or we need to address the situation now. We need to know what the current policy is, and if the Mobile Police Department is in the process of changing that policy, we want to know when would those policies, the new policies, be ready. I think we don't need to leave here today saying it's up in the air, don't nobody know what. We need to know where we are with body cameras. That's why we're calling this meeting. I was intending to have a public safety committee meeting, and so we are now having a city council meeting in lieu of the public safety committee meeting. One of the issues that was on the agenda was body cameras, and I think the police department needs to speak up about body cameras now.
I agree.
Mr. Richardson, Mr. Public Safety Director, and Chief Batiste, we've got a request from Mr. Richardson to give us an overview of our current body camera policy. If you all wouldn't mind, we'd be interested in hearing it. And we want to stress that what they're going to articulate is where we are now. One of the reasons we're having these dialogues is so that we can see how we might need to supplement, change, or eradicate this policy or that policy to make it better. So, but I think it's a prime question. If you all could give us an overview of what the current policy is, that would be helpful.
Chief Batiste, first of all, let me begin providing my explanation. First of all, I believe it's really ludicrous that this city council would ask us to disclose the what's in the body cam policy, because we've turned it over to the council on numerous occasions. It is not new. Everybody that's a city council member has had access to what our body camera policy happens to be. The other part is this, is that as we developed the body cam policy, I was just coming on board with the city of Mobile as the assistant chief of Mobile. The city council had just put in place a mechanism for the city of Mobile to be wearing body cameras. It was a new phenomenon in this particular area. The policy by which that we use here at the city of Mobile, that was not a national standard policy at the time. We developed a national standard policy. We have gone to the state legislator and asked them to assist us with working with our body cam policy to try to get feedback from the Attorney General's office, which has not happened to this point. But nonetheless, we have put together a very robust body cam policy by which every officer that operates in field operations or in traffic wears a body camera. We have been so aggressive to the point that not only do those officers wear body cameras during their normal work day, but we have upgraded it to where they have a body cam when they are at off-duty side job working requirements currently. And again, we do not require supervisors to wear body cameras simply from the perspective that their interaction with the general public is usually one of trying to go in to de-escalate situations with the officers that are on the scene rather than having interactions directly with the general public. I think our policy is very robust. I think if you've read it, it's about an 8-page document. We've tried to cover every aspect that we could possibly think of to address what could potentially happen in a situation involving the general public. But nonetheless, we have never been opposed to reviewing and updating our policy as we move forward, and we'll continue to do those things when asked to do so. But to be put on the spot to make a decision about making a change to a policy today, I think one is unfair for this department to be put on trial by anyone from the city council about being able to provide new changes to body cam policy.
Chief,
Wow.
Chief, one second. Chief Batiste, let's just make certain that everybody's on the same page. That is not the expectation of this meeting, and it's certainly not the expectation of the members of the council. And furthermore, it was members of this council that pushed and instigated and made the efforts in order to secure the body cameras. So we are pretty well versed in what your current policy is. But I think if I were to ask the average citizen here what they know relative to the policy, they would admit that they don't know. So rather than us trying to explain what your policy is, it'd be better for you to do it. No one's trying to put you on trial here, Chief. That's not, we were not even going down that road. All we asked was for you to give an overview of what your current policy is. No one has even made a suggestion as to how that policy might even be changed. So that's not what we're doing here, Chief. So we can tone it down 2 or 3 notches, because that isn't what we're here for. We're here for a discussion with the persons who pay the salaries of every person in this room. And so we're not here to try to put anybody on trial. And I'm not going to allow anybody to be put on trial. But we're here to have a discussion, a much needed discussion. And we can't do that with these preconceived notions already when we're simply asking for an overview of your current policy. Whatever your current policy is what it is. And if we need to make changes, you'll bring that to us, we'll bring that to you, the community will give us feedback, and we'll decide as a community. So Chief, that's not what we're doing.
Councilman, with all due respect, the statement made by Councilman Richardson that we need to get answers about changing that policy immediately is not what I would consider not putting the police department on the front line. Again, I do believe that as an agency, we have been very transparent in providing that policy, not just to this council, but we have released that policy multiple times to the media, and it has been reviewed to many of the citizens in this community. So again, with all due respect to the explanation that was given, based off the comments, and I did not direct my comments specifically to a council member, but a council member specifically talked about us being able to make changes to the policies as we're sitting here today. And again, I don't think that's fair to the department. Again, I am more than welcome, I'm more than pleased at any time to sit down about making changes to policies. Every time there's an incident within our department, we review our policies to make sure that we're, one, in compliance, the other part, and see if there are policy failures, to see if we need to make updates to these policies. So as an agency, based off our standards and practices, we are always looking to try to make sure that we're doing the things that serves this community in the best possible way. I don't take it as a personal attack on me, but I do take it as a personal attack on the fact that we have made these things available for people to look at. We have provided it not necessarily to the public individually, but we have provided it to the media when questions or concerns have come up about our policies, and we continue to try to make sure we put that information out there as best we can. And again, I just, based off the comment that was made by the council member, I believe that it was, I think that the council as a whole know that we have provided these policies and made them available.
Mr. President,
Mr. Richardson?
one want to say that the statement that was just made by the chief is ludicrous. I made no such statement. I never made a statement that we're here today to make no policy. I'm trying to find out what the policy is, so if there is a change in policy, they can come back to us later on. I never made a statement that we're trying to make no policy today. I haven't made that statement. And I'm sorry that I was perceived as having said that. I haven't said no such thing. And let me just say that nearly 50 people here today is a drop in the bucket in regards to the number of people that's looking at us right now. We are live right now. People all over the city is watching what we say. And for me to ask what the current policy is now, and if it's in transition, whereas I just heard some good things that they've asked the Attorney General and other people to weigh in on it. Nobody asked the council because people are asking us about the policy. No one asked me anything about the policy. I did watch the video where Mr. Antonio Moore referred to, where the officers came, and I didn't see an officer there with a body camera on. And then the sergeant came up and said, I don't have to wear a camera. I'm exempted from wearing a camera. So the point is, I had no idea of that. No one told me anything like that. But if we're not making any policy, I'll tell you what my policy is. If you police in the city, the streets in the city mobile, I don't care what your rank is. If you got a gun on, mace, and all of that stuff on, you policing the streets of the city mobile, you need a body camera on. I don't care who you are. If you are policing the streets of the city mobile, now if you're in the office, that's one thing. But we're not dealing with that today. We're not dealing with that. That's not what we're dealing with today.
That's not what we're here for.
No.
Right.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Mr. Vice President?
Go first.
I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah. We don't need this meeting to jump off track. And so
Right.
we came prepared really to listen. And so just an observation is if you have an 8-page document that outlines the body camera procedure, we can't give an overview of that because the very thing that's the most important to somebody, if it's on page 4 and we just happen to miss it, they're going to walk out thinking, well, they don't have this, when in fact we may have it. So we really didn't come here to explain the policies because what we're doing is we're reviewing all of our policies. So really it's more important for us to hear what the citizens are saying so that then we can look at what we're doing and come back and say, this is based on what we heard you say, based on what we're doing, these are the changes that we think that we can implement, and here's the entire deal. So I would hope that, we don't find ourselves having to answer a lot of questions tonight. It's more of hearing and understanding what's on people's minds, on the citizens' minds. Okay?
Mr. Small and then Mr. Weaver.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, and to the mayor and to the public safety director and the chief. We understand that we're here to listen, but you're going to have many citizens want to know, some answers, and I already know the top 2 is going to be body cameras and also the policy and procedure manual about passing it out. Ms. Trotter came and asked about that, and the gentleman, I think Antoine, had came to city council meetings several times and asked about the procedure about, how it is going to be released. My question is it possible that you all can just give us a brief statement do y'all release the policies for the body cameras, and also do y'all release the policies to the public for the policy and procedure manual for the police department? Because again, I already know that majority of the citizens that's coming down today is going to be asking that and addressing that, and I kind of will feel kind of bad if they leave here and not get that answer. Do the police department release that to the average citizen, and if so, how can they get a copy of it?
Mr. President?
Mr. Williams
Can they
asked
answer
me-
that?
Okay.
Can they answer his?
Sir?
If I might, I actually asked our legal advisor last week to start look at what the national standard was as it related to releasing policies and procedures, the entire policy and procedure manual. And so we are looking at whether or not we will be releasing that and making that available online on our website at some point. But again, she's still doing the research to get me an answer on that.
Well, is that your
Yeah,
question?
thank you.
Mr. Swan?
Thank you.
Mr. Williams?
My question, or my comment is going to be very brief, and it's very similar to Mr. Small's, and that is that my expectation, if I were the boss, and I'm not, but if I were the boss, and somebody said, "What's your policy?" and we hear what it was, I mean, it's really about who's wearing them, and do we think that we might change that? It's a very simple thing. We're not picking on you. This council has been 100% supportive of the police department in every aspect. There has not one policy or ask for money that this council didn't support unanimously. So we're not against it. We're not against anything that you're doing that we are aware of. But I wrote down body cam before I ever came in here. I was going to write rules of engagement. Can an off-duty officer engage, and when and how? Those are very simple, on-the-street policies. And no, Chief, I don't expect you to get down in the weeds on page 7, paragraph B. And if somebody's disappointed, Mr. Mayor, that you didn't comment on it, then they can voice that. But we certainly can, as a city, even if it comes straight from the mayor or whoever, answer these questions. To go away today and say, we'll look into it and tell you later, I think it just comes up short. We know what this nation has been facing for a long time. And we're not talking about new things. Body cameras, Antonio, de-escalation, basic procedures, we call them SOPs, that addressed very specific things. They were our marching orders. Every soldier had 7 things in their pocket. And this is what you do. This is how you'll act. And that's what we're trying to get here. So I would hope that we open it up, quit looking at our watches, know that tomorrow will come because these guys are protecting us. But at the same time, if we're all civil and we're asking good questions, as we have so far, there's no reason why these guys aren't getting at least the best answer we can provide today. Thank you.
Can I comment?
Mr. President?
Let's meet Ms. Richardson will come right to you.
Okay.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
I don't think anybody wants to put anyone on the spot, especially with policing, after what all communities are going through. But if I recall on the body camera, the idea that there is not a cookie cutter for how you release it. In other words, everything really depends on the situation, whether it's something that someone is accused of something and you just can't get it out to the public or to somebody who wasn't involved in the incident. So I think that there's dynamics to it, that a simple, this is what we're going to do, might inform the public that they think they have a right to see something, even a friend's interchange or whatever. But there are complete legal guidance, which is why someone with a legal head is putting together what parts of the policy is. And we did get it when you opened it up and when we funded it. And another thing was the storage is more expensive than the camera apparatus. To store it, how long you store it, and all this, it's evolving. So I don't want anyone here to think that we're not trying to get answers. You just can't get them immediately. There's reasons for it. Thanks.
Mr. President.
Richardson?
Yes. Let me say quickly that I have 30,000 people in District 1. Many of them sent me questions because they can't come. I'm going to ask every one of them. Now, what the officials from the police department are going to do about these questions, I don't know. They can't come. And that's why didn't we tell them you can have up until 5 o'clock yesterday to send our questions in?
Yes, sir.
And to tell us why are you asking us? We can't answer. That's why we called the meeting. I'm going to ask every question that the citizens sent me, but that's what I recommend, though, Mr. President. If what you want to do is let's listen to everybody, and then come back to each council member to see what we have. I'll just shut down and let these people who signed up to speak, let them speak. I don't have nothing to say. But when you get with them, you got to come to me. I represent the people. They can't come. I am the only spokesman that they have. I will speak.
Amen. That's what.
Mr. President,
Mr. Daves?
we called this meeting to hear from the public, and secondarily, to hear what the administration and particularly the Public Safety Department and police have. So far, we've spent 4 times as much time listening to the people up on this dais as we have from the public.
Well, that's what the
I can't control that, Mr. Davis, and neither
City
can you.
Council meeting.
I'm just asking our colleagues to control it.
Yeah.
Let's hear
I
from the
don't think you
public.
I don't think you've ever shut your mouth when you had something to say, Mr. Days. So I recommend you check that. Let's go to the people.
Go to people.
Madam City Clerk, but Mr. Williams's point is duly noted. Madam City Clerk.
Okay, so Mr. Tapia is not here. Mr. Tapia? Oh, okay. Roxanne Isom, and following Roxanne Isom is James Williams.
Roxanne?
Miss Isom, Miss Roxanne Isom.
I'm having difficulty coming around after that, I tell you. That was a lot. Okay. Oh, good afternoon. I'm Roxanne Isom. I live at 1833 Pallister Place West, Mobile, Alabama, 36618. I am a 64-year-old black female who was born and raised in Mobile, Alabama. Now, to my knowledge, our police department has not ever used a chokehold that resulted in death, and that's just to my knowledge, okay? But with all that being said, I am a psychiatric nurse, and I would suggest that the police department use the crisis prevention techniques to de-escalate individuals when they are in a crisis situation. We call cold grays in facilities, and that's when there's a behavior going on that needs to be addressed. Usually security shows up, and security is used as just a force, a presence. We might have one patient and there might be 5 security, but they don't even touch the patient. Just a show of force, as we call it. On occasions, though, the patient does have to be held down. I've worked at Cersei, so there are occasions where that person had to be restrained or held down. As a nurse, then I go and I monitor to ensure that no harm comes to the patient or security. I have actually reached in and said, "You're on their chest. Get off their neck." Whatever, everybody has to be safe. And that's how it ended. And, they're like, okay, all right. So I suggest developing a rapport as well. Restraints are associated with death by strangulation. Any unnecessary restraint is false imprisonment. To me, handcuffs should be enough most of the time. 30 seconds, okay. When harm occurs to an individual who is in custody or whatever, I think about, especially my brothers, sisters, nephews, I think about all those people that could be injured. I know that the other thing I wanted to say was, if like a shot is required or has to happen, somebody has to be shot, can we just say shoot them in the leg? What happened to shooting them in the leg or as opposed to the torso? You know, just you want to stop them. If they're running away, I don't shoot, but I would aim down. But anyway, the last thing is, I know y'all not here to talk about this, but I just got to say it's been eating at me since the last meeting I witnessed on TV. I'm wearing a mask. We're all wearing a mask for myself and others. In response to the nurse, I got to say it, who stated, "Hi, Hitler," during a previous meeting, I just say, my response is, "Hail to Almighty God." And that's all I have to say.
Amen. Thank you for coming down today.
James Williams. Following James Williams is Orlando Bethel.
My name is James Williams, and my address is 2504 Compass Street here in Mobile. And my question is directed primarily to the Chief of Police as it relates to police misconduct. If a person has been restrained, they are in compliance with the officer, and yet they are still being beaten or maybe choked or held on the ground by 4 or 5 officers, what can a citizen do to prevent that person from further having physical harm done to them or possibly losing their life? If they have the handcuffs on and they are no threat to anyone, but they are still being assaulted by an officer of the law. What is it that a citizen can do to help that person? That's my question.
That is an extremely difficult legal question to answer, because anything that I say, if for some reason someone intervened, potentially I could be placing that individual in harm's way. And so I'd like to maybe do some research on what's been done in other places, but that's not something that I would be in the business of telling people to intervene when a law enforcement officer is taking legal action to do with something, because it could place the other individuals in harm's way. Wanda,
I think what we can all do is to continue to video, stay present, find out who the officers are, get their names, get their cars, car numbers, and report anything that you see that may not look like it should be happening. If you have to call 911, call 911. But there are certain protocols that police have to follow when they're restraining suspects or individuals. And I don't think we could just say that a citizen should just get into the fray because, as the chief said, someone could possibly get hurt. And so that's just a very difficult question. But I say remain on the scene, video, and be cognizant of what's going on. And also be present when police come around to ask if you saw anything, to be able to give a statement.
My response is that as a citizen, I am not going to stand by and allow another citizen to lose their life if they are in a situation where they are helpless and they can't do anything for themselves and they're being restrained by an officer of the law, I'm not going to stand by and allow that person to lose their life. That's my personal feelings, but I just wanted to get some feedback from the chief as well as others here that are in a position that could answer that question. But personally myself, as a citizen and a member of this mighty country, I am not going to stand by and allow a person to lose their life because an officer is exercising something that's outside the scope of his authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Mr. President.
Sir?
When the next speaker comes, I suggest that you let them ask all of their questions and then be seated and because they're going to stand and want to respond to whatever they say. Just let them ask. They got 2 minutes. Say whatever they're going to say in 2 minutes, and that's it.
Yes, sir.
And then let the other people respond.
That will be fine.
I'll be quiet if I have to, but if I have to speak, I will.
Mr. Orlando Bethel, and following Mr. Bethel is Rose McCants.
You disagree?
Good afternoon. My
Good
name
afternoon.
is Orlando Bethel. My address is 1617 Polk Street, Mobile, Alabama 36605. Firstly, I would like to say that if the City of Mobile Police, City of Mobile as a whole would like to really work on police reform, it's going to be required that the City of Mobile be willing to invest funds into the police department and actually its police officers, not defund the police, number one. I will say that an officer actually who has proper training, an officer that has self-discipline, and an officer actually who has the respect of the life of others, if he has those qualities, actually he has a higher success rate of not committing any unnecessary using unnecessary force against any other citizen, or actually using any lethal force against a citizen, especially that's unarmed. Those 3 items are essential to helping him have the protocols that he needs to be on the force. So that's something I would hope that can be implemented within the policies of the police department more effectively. I know you have some at this point. I would also like to say that any officer that actually has a greater level of fear of an unarmed assailant than actually they have for the respect of the life of the unarmed assailant, that officer more than likely is going to end up using lethal force against that assailant. I have presented an outline for some of the people here at the table, but also I've made it provide to the clerk. And, okay, you all have it good. So it will give you more details of some of the proposals for police reform. I'd also like to say, of course, many years ago I've actually have been protesting against the City of Mobile Police Department and filed lawsuits for civil rights violations against certain officers for years. More recent years, I've actually trained in martial arts with some City of Mobile police officers, so I have a somewhat unique perspective at this point in understanding some of their tactics, their motivations for their personal safety and things of this nature. The outline there should be able to give a pretty good, give you a good idea of what the proposals should look like. Thank you all very kindly for your time, and I hope you all have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Rose McCants, and following Rose McCants is Regina Green.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Rose McCants. Regina Green is my daughter. I live 900 Downtowner Boulevard, apartment 32. The zip is 36609. I am 76 years old. Back in 2015, my daughter was hit by another car. Well, a car ran into the back of her. And when the police officer came, she was crying out because she was injured. And when he came around to the car, he said, calm down, I say. That's the way he talked. And I was standing there by the door, but I was not, had full body in the door, so I was not in his way. And he says, so who are you? I say, I'm her mother. And before I can get mother out really good, he jabbed me in my chest. I have, back in 2007, I suffered 3 heart attacks. And I have had a triple heart bypass. In 2014, I had pulmonary embolism, blood clot in my lungs, and I was taking blood thinner. When he hit me, I was taking blood thinner. I was on a cane just like this. And when he hit me, I started backing away, falling backwards into almost the traffic that was going the other way. I could have been dead, but I'm still here. I thank God. Now, we went to Internal Affairs. We also went to the FBI. We took material. We took everything. The Internal Affairs wanted to change our statement. Mr. Stephen Chandler, he's the policeman. He's the police officer. He's still employed, I believe. They never did anything to him. He also was under anger management at the time. And we went and got an attorney, but that didn't do, because the city of Mobile had many attorneys that went against us, me and my daughter. She was injured also because he made her get out of her seatbelt and reach over on the passenger side of the floor and get her purse. And she was not supposed to have even moved. My daughter is a miracle because she was ejected back in 2011 on the interstate, on Interstate 10. And it's a blessing and a miracle that she's still here. I know my time is almost up, but this was in 2015 and I'm still going through anxiety attacks. They said they waited until after a year, and I tried to go then and swear a warrant on Mr. Chandler, but they said the deadline was up. And so I just want to know, they told my attorney at the time that they was going to offer us $5,000 and they didn't care how we split it, and they knew that the attorney was going to get most of it. And we felt like that was a slap in the face. We asked for body cam. Back in just a few months ago, we asked for body cam.
I'm sorry. I am so sorry. First off, I am grateful to God that you're still here, that your daughter is still here, and that you're still enclosed in your right mind. Unfortunately, your time has expired.
I understand. I thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for coming down today.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Timothy Hollis. And following Timothy Hollis would be Dorothy Weaver. Oh, is Regina here? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, Regina, are you speaking? Okay. It's Regina Green and then Timothy Hollis.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Regina Green. My address is 5312 Lansdowne Drive, Mobile, Alabama, 36693. That's my mother, Rose McCants, that just spoke. I'd like to add to her statement. We requested for open records, never received a response from the police department or the city of Mobile, and they were both written. We also requested to view the body cam from Internal Affairs. They went in the room as though they reviewed it themselves and came back and looked at me and my mother and said nothing was on the body cam. We were never allowed to view the body cam. And we'd like, at this time, in this year, to view the body cam. We'd like a response from the police department that we never received, nor did we ever receive our day in court. The judge threw the case out without even hearing from us. She dismissed the case. And we would like to see what was done to Stephen Chandler. What action was done to hold him accountable for what he did to my mother. As I sat there in pain in my vehicle, I literally witnessed an assault on my mother, and I couldn't do anything because here I am sitting, and that's the first responder, and that was his action towards us. Meanwhile, he let the guy that hit me, he let him leave and walk and leave away from the scene. Never asked my mother, was she a witness? What was her witness account to the situation? Never asked anything. In fact, he lied on the police report. And after I spoke with a lieutenant there, and my mother had already taken pictures before they even arrived to the scene, the lieutenant had him to amend the report because based on where my vehicle was and based on where his vehicle was, the officer, they knew Corporal Chandler lied on the police report. So they had to amend the police report. But yet we never received any information from the police department, the city of Mobile, and we never got our day in court. And this police brutality has to end. He made me move out of my seatbelt when he could have clearly asked my mom to retrieve my information off the floorboard. Yet he demanded to me 2 or 3 times to retrieve my information. Once I gave it to him, once I gave it to him, the EMTs arrived and they rendered aid. But yet the officer never apologized. He never asked my mother or I what happened in the accident. So he formed his own decision based on his report.
Thank you. Thank you and your mom for coming down today. What you've said and what you've remarked to us is not falling on deaf ears. I know that our public safety director has heard, and also our police chief, and I'm hopeful that you'll be able to make those requests and it move down the chain that it needs to move down. But again, I'm grateful that both of you all are still here and in reasonable health, and thank you for coming down this afternoon.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I did want to add, sir, that I had to
I'm
have...
so sorry, but all your time is run up, but we
President
appreciate.
Manley.
Sir?
Yeah, I would like for you to, and just let the public know that the council cannot direct nor even advise the administration to fire or hire no city employee, including police officers. If we do, that's a misdemeanor and we off the council. But we can ask questions, yes, in what's going on. And if you will, Mr. President, if you can get with the attorney, because I'm sure that besides myself, I know that other councilmen on this dais is going to get questioned about this situation and see what information further that we can find out about it, through our attorney.
Absolutely, Mr. Vice President. And Mr. Small is absolutely correct. We have charged over one employee, and that's the city clerk. All of the other 20-some hundred odd employees work under the employer of Mayor Stimpson, and so we don't give directions to those employees, but we do have the ability to ask and inquire, and we certainly will be doing that as we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Following Timothy Hollis is Dorothy Weaver.
Timothy Hollis, 1924 Seal Street. As you all know, I like to be up close and personal. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This is a hard subject matter for me to touch right now, but it must be addressed, and it's a problem with our Mobile Police Department. But first, the elephant in the room I want to address is, if we do adopt the no-knock law for warrant searches, I want to say right now, we need to drop that, because that's not safe to any resident in this city. That means if you have a traffic warrant, you can be picked up the same way a rapist or a robber can be picked up, or a murderer can be picked up. It's not safe for the police, and it's not safe for the resident in the house. Because as a homeowner, if you bust into my door, I have a surprise waiting on you. And as a police officer, when they see a gun, we already know what they do. Okay, get that elephant out the way. The next elephant is, and I'm appalled that no one spoke on it, crisis intervention. Now, before COVID struck, I remember being in this chamber and we wanted to make a big plight about domestic violence. As we see, it's a trend coming from Washington, D.C. As we know, we have close relations in this administration with Washington, D.C. We know that they're pushing an agenda against domestic violence. There's a citizen in Mobile who I know dearly, who is going through an issue where he wanted a separation from his relationship. He moved away. The person that he moved away from attacked him. That's the reason why he moved out of the house, out of the relationship. The person goes to the police department days after the incident, after they attacked this citizen, and filed a claim against this citizen with no proof of what happened or how it happened, just their story. As the citizen was getting harassing phone calls from that subject, the citizen decided to go to the police department and to the 9th floor over here on this side to file a PFA. When the people saw the marks on this man's face, they told him to go to the headquarters and go ahead and file that report because something needed to be done. When the gentleman got there, he was told that he can't file a report because that report has already been filed against him. When the gentleman made an uproar in the headquarters, which I know is going on the record, and there's a witness also of this event, he gave his story, he came to court, the people who told him to go file the charges were in aid of the female, and his side of the story was not on court record. Now, when this person asks people throughout the city, police, lawyers, and even legal defense, and even Ms. Rwanda already knows what I'm talking about, they say it like Tupac. That's just the way it is. Sometimes it happens that way. But I ask this, when you come out to the scene, you ask everybody a question. You get everyone's side. But if somebody just makes up a lie because they're upset, that person has to have a warrant, then they have to go to jail. And what if they can't afford anything? What if they can't afford legal defense? I speak on that to say that this needs to change because that citizen is me. I'm that citizen. I was falsely accused. I know it is, and I also want to file a complaint against the public safety director for a remark that he made to me Tuesday, walking in saying that he basically knew I was coming here because he wanted to put a box cutter in my back pocket as I made it through the clearance. Now, if I'm lying, I'm flying. Put him on a lie detector.
Thank you, Mr. Hollis. And we appreciate you taking time to come down here this afternoon.
Dorothy Weaver, and following Dorothy Weaver is Rosalind Washington.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Dorothy Weaver. I reside at 213 North Pine Street, Mobile 36003. Over 30 years, I've served our community as an educator. I know Mr. Baptiste from being a parent educator of the Strickland Youth Services. Along with being a citizen, I'm also a mother. I'm an aunt. I'm a cousin and friend to black males, and right now I'm really afraid for them. I'm afraid for them when I see police officers in Baltimore saying that they're just waiting on Facebook to do anything they can so the race war. Immediately they were fired. But what I want to know is how well, Chief Baptiste, do you know your officers? Have you talked with them concerning their posts on Facebook? How well do they understand the sensitivity of serving? Protect does not mean to be afraid. I'm an educator. If I'm afraid of children, I have no business being in a classroom. No business. If I don't like children, I shouldn't be anywhere near them. I joined the field of education because I do care for them and I love them. And then I also would like to know exactly how long do police cadets have in their training? Here in Alabama, a cosmetology has to go for 2 years just to learn how to perm and press and do braids. And from what I understand, some cadets in some states, I don't know about Mobile, are only going 6 months to protect and save citizens. And I wanted to also find out concerning the no-knock entries, the chokehold, the racial bias training, and I was also wondering, there's a big rumor that many people who are of the Klan are infiltrating police departments across the country. I want to know your input on that. Thank you. Hey, Robin. Any questions? I yield my time. I would like an answer. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Weaver.
Rosalind Washington, and following Rosalind Washington is Forrest Wood.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosalind Washington. I reside at 1417 Azalea Road, Mobile, Alabama, 36693. My question is, and I don't know, that's why I'm asking, do police officers, after they've been in an incident, whether it's domestic, traffic accident, whatever it may be, domestic, whatever the cause may be, are they drug tested? Because I know we as citizens, when we have accidents, we're immediately drug tested. So I wanted to know, police officers that have accidents or involved in an incident, are they drug tested? I would like an answer on that. Also, a few years ago, you all removed the Confederate flag off the police cars, but I noticed that it is still on your lapel of the sleeves of the police uniforms. So I would like to know, why is that still there? If you're going to remove it all the way, 100%. But you're still wearing it on the uniform, and I just would like to know why. Thank you.
Thank you.
As it relates to the drug testing, the officers are, if they're involved in an automobile accident or they're involved in a officer encounter, they are, as part of our policy, will have to undergo a urine screen upon the investigation, as part of the investigation.
Mr. President, just for the public knowledge, any city employee that have an accident in a city vehicle is drug tested from that accident.
I'm exempt. I have a
Thank you.
condition that I'm exempt from.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And I just want to state for the record, we have a speaker here. He's informed me that he has a exemption under our mask ordinance, so I'm not wanting to single one out over the other. We're trying to follow the law as we've passed it as closely as possible.
Mr. President,
Mr. Vice President?
in the future, can we say that if we have some coming with a problem with the mask, can they stay up at the top? Because
That's fine.
they're right near the city clerk, right near the police chief. When if they stay up at the top, they're not as near.
That would be fine, Mr.
Okay.
He's here. Would you?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. What
This
is
is
James?
Forrest Wood.
Yes. My name's Forrest Wood. My address is 2116 Wildwood Place, Mobile, Alabama 36609. Unlike a lot of folks here, I didn't come with any questions. I came in support of our police department. I support our local police in an effort to keep them independent. What does it really mean to keep them independent? An independent police department is established and governed by the laws and the jurisdiction in which they are hired to serve and to protect. They do not serve at the whim of the people, nor at the direction of some other governmental entity. While it's allowable in a free society for members of that society to speak their mind regarding any facet of government, just as we're doing here today, it's not allowable for those citizens to arbitrarily change the rules under which the government or any of its entities operate. As free citizens of the city of Mobile, we can make recommendations to the governing body, which is the city council, and in some cases the executive administration. And the Constitution of the United States and the state of Alabama establish the basic framework of law and order in our state and our nation. And by choice, we do not have a national police force. And in our state, we do not, by choice, have an all-powerful state police force responsible for our local protection under the law. What we have is a very effective and efficient police department that is quite capable under the law of policing our city in a safe and efficient manner. What they do not need is the advice or the hindrance of a bunch of supposedly well-intentioned citizens or outside agencies and the manipulators trying to tell them how to do their job. Let me just close by stating that my purpose here today is in support of our local police as they remain governed by laws and not by some arbitrary democratic process that ties their hands and places them in restraint from doing the job that they've been hired to do. So I urge you to support your local police and to keep them independent. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. And Madam City Clerk?
That's all the speakers.
Well, in light of that, we do have Elder Bolahan, who did contact me, and it probably was my place to have turned his name in. If we could extend to him 2 minutes, I would appreciate it. He's always so active in various aspects of the community, and he's asked for 2 minutes, and we're gonna, if the council doesn't mind, we're gonna hear from Elder Bolahan.
Well,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you very much, Councilman, and the mayor and rest of the officials. I have served with all the law enforcement officers.
State his name and address.
In this,
Elder Bolahan, give us your name
all right.
and your address, please.
All right, that's Elder McKinday Bolahan. I'm at 1656 Laurel Street, Mobile, Alabama 36604. I have served with all the law enforcement officers in this room here, and basically my focus is oversight. We have a problem, but if you don't realize you got a problem, then that's two problems. If we don't have oversight And when I was serving with the law enforcement officers in this room, it was my particular responsibility was to try to build a bridge of trust with the community between the police department. But if you asked a question about certain procedure and practices, you never could get an answer. So if there's no oversight, I don't care what kind of policy that might be in place on a piece of paper, policy is one thing, practice is another. What we really need is some oversight so that we can make sure that the community get the kind of information and the clarity that they need for they can build trust and build bridges within the community to have a safer community. Police won't be able to be successful as law enforcement officers in this community unless they have the support of the community. And unless the community have trust and there's proper information, like I really couldn't get information even though I had a conversation with the police department. I couldn't get the information about the complaints that was filed on which precinct that the complaints was coming from. I like to know clearly when it comes to when the policemen are fired from one jurisdiction, can he come here and get a job in this jurisdiction? I'm concerned about that. And I just do not believe that we can clearly address the concerns that we have as a community unless we have some type of oversight when it comes to policing. And actually, I think we're asking the police to do too much. I think funds do need to be diverted into community because there are certain conditions that create criminal situations. There are certain conditions that drive crime in our community. And those conditions need to be addressed. And we don't need to have police to try to address all the problems within the community. We need to address these problems for they won't become a criminal problem. So one thing I really want some emphasis on, can other policemen who work in one jurisdiction and they are relieved from their job, from their behavior, can come and get a job here in Mobile? And also the oversight committee, I just don't think that you can ask the police department to change themselves. I think they really need some insight into oversight to be able successfully to make changes.
Thank you, Elder Bolahan. Following this particular agenda, we've heard communications from citizens. Mr. Mayor, is there anything else you'd like to offer? Mr. Public Safety Director? Mr. Police Chief? Comments from members of the City Council? Any members of the council would like to offer any?
Mr. President, we ask citizens to send to us any questions, issues they don't want to address today.
Give me your mic, I can't hear you.
Okay. We ask citizens to send to us, to mail in to us any issues they would like to have addressed today, and I believe they sent a number of those issues to the city clerk's office.
Yes, sir.
And before we go any further, I would say that I'd like to have those issues read so they'll be known.
Madam City Clerk?
Sir?
Mr. Richardson, can you make your request again? You want all of the questions sent in to the city clerk's office?
Yeah, this is the sheet here.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Ann gave us one of them when she came in.
All of them?
Is it your request that all of them be read, Mr.
Yes, that's what I think they sent them to us for them to. We need to say what they are.
They sent the questions, and we have the questions. So you.
But they don't. But the police. But they don't know who the folks that can do something about it have not heard the questions.
But we're going.
You're going to give them a copy
to them.
Oh, okay. You're going to give.
Right. We'd be here till about 10 o'clock if we read all of them, probably, Doc. But every question that we got, we're going to make certain before we leave today.
They were forwarded to the administration. They have been forwarded already.
They have, great. They have the questions.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. President?
Mr. Vice President?
Yeah, I would like to say that I would like to thank all the citizens for coming out this afternoon, investing into your city with the concerns that, just not rented just in, Mobile, but throughout this particular country. And I would say, and I will put this on record, that I am a anti-bad police officer person, but I am pro-good police officers. Police officers are just like a family, and they're just like your family. You have a good family name, but you can have one bad apple in that family that can destroy your family name. And unfortunately, that sometimes that we do have bad family members in our own family that destroys our name. I have in my family. I'm sure that you all have them in your family. And I know for a fact that they are in the police office, in the police force also. I mean, myself, I have been spotted driving my vehicle. Most people know what type of vehicle I drive, and it does have tinted windows, and I'd be spotted and follow behind for a couple of minutes, then they go behind, but me personally, I just take my time, keep my speed limit, keep cruising, and say I know they're doing their job. I actually been pulled over by the sheriff department and the highway patrol, and I basically just keep my hands on the steering wheel, and the first thing I think about is if I'm gonna get shot, so I basically, as Ms. Wanda Ramon has said, basically what we can do is pretty much just keep our cameras on, our cell phones on, and record, and just really just be be obedient to the officer and try to apply for what they say. And if they go, off the record, one thing you do, you have your cell phone that you have recorded, and as Ms. Ramon had also stated, call 911. Again, that could be a bad police officer right there. Just dial 911. And just put the phone on the side of your seat. But again, I do support the police officer, but I do not support bad police officers. And the thing about it is that they cannot say that that's just separated, because you don't know who is who. You have many wolves that's wearing sheep clothing, and the thing about it is you can't separate it. I can say that I love Reverend Manson all day long, but I can be saying behind his back and be stabbing him at the same time in his back, And the thing about it is just not the police officer. It can be just anybody else throughout the city of Mobile or in the type of jobs. But I would just say, and I would like to ask that the that the administration, and also with the public safety director and the chief of police, is to work on, releasing, the policy and procedures of the body cameras, and also the policy and procedure manual to the citizens of Mobile, because they do have a right to know exactly what. And I'm glad that Mayor Stimson had also released a email on yesterday, and it said that the mayor announced the creation of a task force to review policies and practice across many aspects of local government, including the Mobile Police Department, human resource, finance, business, and community development. And it says that the specific agenda for the task force will include use of force policies within the Mobile Police Department, the use of body cameras, review of MPD implementation of the 21st century of policing. So with this being said, that I am having high hopes that the citizens of Mobile will get what they've been asking for, and that is the release of the body camera manuals, procedures, and the policy and procedure manuals to the citizens and everything. And it looks like the mayor is on track in trying to get that done. And again, I do appreciate everyone for coming out this afternoon, because this is good feedback from you all, but the administration can know exactly what the citizens is wanting. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Mr. President.
Mr. Davis?
Thank you. I would just like to thank everybody that took the time to come out today and to be here, those who spoke, those who couldn't be here but sent in questions. This is what makes our country great, is the opportunity for the citizens to be heard on matters of interest to them. But it's important that we all protect that right by being here and giving us your opinion and submitting your questions. So once again, thank you very much for being here this evening. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Mr. Richardson?
yeah, our mayor sent out, as Councilman Small said, a statement regarding a group he's going to empower to look at a number of practices within the police department, including body cameras. But when I mentioned body cameras, it would appear to some that I had run off the rails when I mentioned body cameras. But the mayor mentioned body cameras is just what they ought to be looking at. I made it known when I first got down here, and I think if you know anybody who knows anything about me, I made it clear that I am the voice. I am the voice. I will speak. You can like what I say, or you cannot like what I say. But I'm going to say it. Now, some months ago, our police chief and I ended up at the same church, the White Stone Baptist Church. And we had pretty much a church for the people, and a lot of those people were young people. And instead of him having the opportunity to talk about the police department and all of that, he ended up being beat down with questions about misbehaving police officers. They went on and on with the police. So finally he said that according to the record, you know, he didn't have but just a few complaints on record. So he said, let me see the hands of the people who been downtown and filed a record. Not the first hand went up. Because we're scared. It doesn't matter, but you need to hear what I got to say. Chief point was, I can't investigate what I don't know. And I said that to say this to all of you that's out there in TV land, Facebook land, YouTube land, wherever you are. If you believe that there is an officer whose conduct is unbecoming of an officer, complain, turn him in, go to your precinct, go to the police headquarters and file a record. Now I know what you say, that when the police get in the western side of the city, they treat the citizens differently than they do on the east side of town. I don't disagree, but you know why? Because they will turn them in on the western side. You want the police to act right in your community? Turn in what you see. You can't sit there and witness a police officer misbehaving and expect the police officer to get better. I'm here to say, turn it in. Now, I have issues that the citizens sent to me, and let me get my thing back working. Okay. And I want to go over those. They wanted me to find out what was the police department's procedure regarding lethal weapons. Would you rather get back with us on that later on, or what?
Sorry, I didn't hear the questions.
The citizens want to know what are the police procedures regarding lethal weapons.
Regarding the use of lethal weapons?
Yes, the use of lethal weapons.
And they want to know the procedure for the use of...
Any policy you have regarding lethal weapons?
Well, as I stated earlier, Ms. Ramon is looking, we're trying to see if we put that stuff online so that people can see what the use of force policy continuum would happen to be.
Okay, that sounds good. What I'll say to that, to the citizens that's listening, we intend in the future, in the near future, to get more definitive information on the use of lethal force. It's in progress of being looked at, and we'll get something on that later on. Okay? They want to know what is the police, do we have a no-knock warrant policy? No knock, that you don't have to, you don't have to knock on the door. You knock the door down and come on in. Do we have a no-knock warrant policy?
I can address that one, Mr. President. The police department does not issue no-knock warrants. Those are something that are issued by the court, and in the past few years, I can't even imagine a single no-knock warrant being issued in this county. They're issued under very stringent conditions to where there's an imminent threat to life if the person thereafter knows that they're coming. And so I guess the best way to explain it is talking to the DA the other day. In the past couple of years, there's been no such warrants issued in Mobile, but the best place would be to defend a hostage or to protect the officers from the imminent danger of deadly physical force if they announce their presence at that location. Very stringent standards, which is why you don't see us use it. I actually agree with the sense that it is dangerous sometimes to the officers to enter without announcement. So the balancing test is we have to be able to prove to a judge that it's more dangerous to announce than it is to not announce, and it not just the officers, but say to a hostage or something like that. So I guess the no-knock actually came from other jurisdictions, not necessarily Mobile. It's a very rarely seen instrument and one that many of law enforcement don't use except in very exigent circumstances.
Does it take a circuit court?
It can be issued by circuit or district, but it is not issued by municipal. It's not issued by the police department. It's done in front of a judge.
Okay. Of course, the number one issue of all of the complaints I received had to do with body cams. So we expect you all to get back with us on a definitive policy on body cams. We want to know whether or not you have given your officers any training on de-escalation.
All of our officers go through de-escalation training.
Okay. They also want to know whether or not that you safeguard the hiring of officers do you safeguard the hiring of officers by ensuring that they don't bring to the force a negative background where they have some sort of resentment against some of our citizens, some of the citizens that they're going to have to police?
So what I can say is that Mobile PD does a thorough background on our officers. I don't think that there's anything that exists anywhere that gives you the ability to know that every little thing or every minute detail that happens in someone's life, but we do a very thorough background and try to identify anything that would create a positive, that would make us aware of a particular bias that an individual may have towards a particular group of people before we hire them.
Chief, Facebook would tell the whole story. If you go back to Facebook 4 or 5 years, the story's going to be up there. They're going to tell it all up there. So there's no such thing you can't find out. I'm saying, to say it's nothing I can do. I've just got to bring this officer on as is because it's really nothing I can do. I know people are fired from the job because of what they posted on Facebook. So it's a way to find out, it's a way to find out. So, well, let me just say this. The citizens would like for you all to have some way to look at the background of these officers before you turn them loose on the force. Now, whether you have a policy like that or not, I don't know. The citizens want you to figure out what other cities done about this and implement it here, so you won't turn the officers loose. They're already bringing the bars with him before he get out there to start patrolling. That's what they want. So I'm just laying that one out there. And there's a chokehold. They want to know about the chokehold. Yeah, they want to know about the chokehold. Do we have a policy on are we using the chokehold? Do we have a policy saying that we won't use the chokehold? What's our policy regarding the chokehold?
We do not teach chokehold in Mobile Police Department. We are looking at how we need to particularly revise a policy that will talk about the use of a neck restraint within our department. But as of right now, we do not teach a chokehold in the Mobile Police Department Academy.
Okay. And I'm closing mine out now. I would like to say that in watching videos, I've seen excessive force on numerous occasions on the part of our officers. One where they had the officer already handcuffed, put him in the car, and then the officer took him out of the car, choked him, slammed up against another car, and just did that, and then put it back in the car. I'm saying that if the officer is already in the car and the door is closed, where he can't get out, take the officer to the jailhouse. This business is taken back out, and I'm saying that, and then the public is having to watch that. I don't support that kind of behavior. Once the person is contained, take the person down to the jailhouse. Last thing I want to say, I support the police department 100%. I've never voted against nothing that you put. I've been here for almost 24 years, and not one instance have I voted against anything that was put before me regarding the police department. I have never voted down any item. Some of it I didn't like, I still voted for it. Because I'm giving you all the benefit of the doubt. You got a tough job, you don't know what's going to happen to you every day. I give you the benefit of the doubt. Let it go. I have not waged no campaign against the police department and the fire department. You the first responders, and behind you 100%. I have a voice, I will speak. Just because I vote doesn't mean I won't say what I need to say in regards to the citizens of the city of Mobile. I also represent the citizens in the city of Mobile. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Mr. Williams?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I, too, am interested in the continued evaluation of our body cam policy. I mean, I've talked to both of you about this. I mean, I don't think we could be better led in our public safety. The department, either fire or police, and especially with regard to our chiefs. Mine is never to question, but always to ask. And I hope that we can continue a good dialogue. I voted on body cameras to protect our officers. I said it when I voted on it. I mean that now. It also protects our citizens. But primarily, the officers that are 99% doing what they're supposed to be doing are going to be protected by that. And they're going to be quickly released back to duty and proven innocent. And so the expansion of body cameras and the use of by all who are in contact with our citizens, I would vote on it before I would vote on the paving of any road in District 4. Woody, Mr. Wood, Forrest Wood mentioned independent. They are independent. I don't think that our force could be more independent, but the mayor is the commander-in-chief. I am not for a oversight committee. I am not. I do not believe that we need another band of supervision. I've always said it. I think we have a police force that has proven itself. I am for the advisory committee, and one that can interact with citizens and also have an open dialogue. And I hope that the next attempt at that with Dr. Richardson as my representative can be a successful one. The last thing I would request is, Ms. Ramon, if you could please state what you said again about what a citizen should do when they're at a scene and when they are not in direct contact or not being directly told what to do by a police officer. What should they do as they're there on the scene? You put it so well, I would not try to quote you. Thank you.
They should record the incident as it's unfolding. They should get the names of the officers or of the number of the police car and call 911.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Williams, and thank you, Ms. Ramon. Ms. Gregory?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate that. And I, too, appreciate all of you who came out tonight to be a part of this. Thank you to Chief Batiste and all of the mayor's administration. I appreciate you all being here and for agreeing to answer questions. I know it probably seems like you're being asked to do something that maybe you were not prepared to do this evening, and maybe the feel of the room was very tense. We certainly did not intend it to be that way. This was really just set up as a way for the council and the administration to hear from the public. And I think it's more important to be proactive than to be reactive. And I think that's what the mayor is doing by setting up his task force, and that is being proactive in looking at any issues that may be in the community now and trying to resolve those before we have to become reactive. That's not what we want to be. You know, you have to be living under a rock right now if you don't know what's going on around the country and seeing some of the things that are happening in other cities. Now, thankfully, that's not happening in Mobile. It doesn't mean it couldn't happen in Mobile, and we don't want it to happen in Mobile. And that's why we are working to be proactive, to work through any issues that we have, to review our policies and our procedures, and to make sure that our officers get better training. One gentleman here gave us a really long list of suggestions and concerns, and one of them was not to defund police, as you've heard as a popular slogan, but to put more money into the police department. And I agree with that. You've got to put more money into the police department if you want to get better quality employees, better trained employees. You want to keep those good employees around for a while. You don't want them coming into the city being trained and then leaving for another job somewhere else because the pay is better. Instead of defunding police, let's double what we put into the police department. Give them higher salaries, give them better equipment, give them better training. And then also let's work on the other challenges that we have with mental health. Our police officers don't need to be dealing with folks who have mental challenges. That's not what they do. So there are a lot of issues out there that we can work together to try to resolve. And again, I applaud what the mayor is doing. He is taking this thing upon himself to set up these task forces and to listen to the community and try to resolve. And that's what we all need to be doing as well. And I think that's what everybody in this room wants. We want a good working relationship with our police department and our community. We want the transparency because everybody deserves to know what's going on. In the meantime, the city council is here for you. If you have any issues, any problems that you're afraid to address with somebody in your community, call us. I have residents in some of my communities who are afraid to pick up the phone or who are afraid to complain, but they're not afraid to call me. And I'm certainly not afraid to contact anybody sitting out in front in the police department or in the mayor's office to try to resolve what their issues are. So again, I just thank everyone for coming tonight. We are really proud of our police department and our fire department too, and our brand new recruiter up there who I can't wait for him to start bringing in new hires to our city. This is a great city. This council works well together with everyone, and we're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. And I just look forward to more positive discussions and involvement between ourselves and the mayor and the police department. As Mr. Williams said, I too will be supporting a revamp or restart, if you will, of our Citizens Advisory Council. Hopefully, maybe this time they can continue working and get things right, and I'll have an appointment coming up soon for that. So again, just thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate your involvement.
Thank you, Ms. Gregory. Ms. Rich?
Thank you. I would echo the exact sentiments of Councilwoman Gregory in thanking everyone for being here and for making it very clear defunding is not the answer to policing. We need policing in our city. We need public safety officials in our city. And that's something that I've always asked, because it should be the number one amount of resource that any city has, should be devoted to that, because in our state, you become a city based on the fact that you produce public safety for your citizens. And it's a huge quality of life issue. And right now, there's obvious, very clear in listening, we have trust issues. And trust is something that through education can change. And one thing that was pointed out, people made complaints. They didn't feel comfortable that their complaint was actually given the time and the resource that is needed. So I would like to learn about who reviews those complaints, who sits with the citizen when they come in. Is it anyone automatically involved? You know, do you make sure that it's somebody who is maybe from a different precinct and didn't work with the person that they're complaining about? You know, how do you go about that? Because I do think that that's something that when someone has a personal experience and it doesn't go well, that's something that's just indulged in part of their character. They talk about it at home, they talk about it with their friends, and it continues to grow, and it's like a cancer. It's not good. So someone who comes forward with a complaint, that's the time to really pay attention and to do that exactly correct. You can't always give the person the answer they want, but they have to know how you arrived at your answer, and it shouldn't be curt. They shouldn't be asked to change things, nothing like that. So I would hope that that's something that's, in this day and age, is extremely important for citizens. And we have a really good website for policing. And today, most people are wired up with or have a way to get to that resource. And I would like to see that as an avenue where people can learn what is expected of the citizen. What can they expect? What should they know about? And then policies and procedures that are, can be put out there for resource and an understanding that empowers the citizen. And that's what you want to do. It builds the trust, it increases our quality of life. And our jobs, as was pointed out, is not to dictate to policing. They are under so many guidance from our state and on a national level with the Justice Department. They get reviews, they have academies, they have procedures, but the funding, it really starts with the funding. And we might say that we want to pay more and we want college-educated police, because that's something that would turn a profession that really would grow with the individual because they were trained professionally at a college level. And again, that to me, there's so much out there for us to do, but we all have to pull together, and we really have to start with the level of trust in the foundation. And I know that's a big thing to do for people that have had experiences that were not pleasant or felt that they were not listened to. So again, I thank you for being here, and I know that my office is always open to talk to citizens about concerns. And I'm not afraid to also talk out. So anybody that I represent, I'm more than happy to work with them and get them the right answers that they're looking for. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Rich. I want to just pretty well ditto what has been said by my colleagues on the council. We thank all of you for coming out this afternoon and adding your voice, adding your concern, adding your positive and or negative interaction so that we are aware of it as a community, so that the mayor and the public safety director and our chief of police is aware of it, so that we can make this department and moreover this city the best that it can be. All of us have witnessed the last 7 or 8 weeks examples of the worst. That's one of the reasons why we're here. It's one of the reasons why we have this moment, we have this opportunity, we have all of these interactions and task force. None of that was in play prior to what took place in Minneapolis and moving forward. We were not even having that discussion. but we're having it now. And I'm grateful as a result of that. Hopefully the culture, the environment, the level of trust will be improved here in the city of Mobile. I don't have one doubt that we have some great police officers. I don't have a doubt in that. I've had positive interaction with Mobile police. I've had negative interaction with Mobile police. But when I'm in trouble, I would put them up against anybody. When I've been in trouble, I've had to call on them, and they respond and have responded professionally. That has not been the case everywhere. And the only way that Chief Batiste can be held accountable to that is if we report it. And I hear this notion that we're scared. We are too far beyond that now. We need to let somebody know, whether it's creating an anonymous email, text message, however. The only way they'll know what to do is if we tell them. And there'll always be a one-sided kind of a proposition if one side of the community is letting them know the issues and the concerns, and the other side is sitting back resting on our laurels saying we're too scared. I don't know if all of these individuals, including me, everybody in here that works for the city of Mobile earns resources from taxpayers. So at the end of the day, you do have oversight. It's called your vote. It's called your ability to be a citizen in this community. I have a boss. I have 29,746 bosses. And it sometimes feel like I hear from them all at the same time. Oh, yes. I heard somebody say there is no oversight. Yes, there is oversight. Oh, yes. There's oversight. Through your community, all of us have input. And I believe the chief is willing to listen. I believe Ms. Director Barber is willing to listen. The mayor is setting up all these task force to listen. And we're here this afternoon in order to listen. Because upwards of a year ago, we knew about Minneapolis, but it wasn't because of why we know it. We knew what was going on in Atlanta, but not for these reasons. And we don't want those track marks to come down here. We can do better. And I don't think there is if you have a question, I believe they're willing to get you the answers. I believe if we have questions, they're willing to get us the answers. Because it's all of our business. Because it's all of our city. And so I'm appreciative of each and every one of you. I'm appreciative of this council assembling ourselves on this Thursday afternoon. Mayor Stimson for being here. And I look forward to the engagement of, as well as I'm just, Brown, former U.S. Attorney General Kenyon Brown. Wealth of knowledge. We can do better than other communities because I believe we are better than other communities. Thank all of you. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Let me
Sure.
make a comment.
Absolutely.
I'd like to tell a real short story. Several years ago, well, actually before I became the mayor, Mobile Fire Department was what was known as a ISO 3 fire department. And there was a quest to really be much better than that, and the rating is called an ISO 1. So put these numbers in your mind just for a moment. There's like 46,000 or something like that, 5 districts in the United States. To be an ISO 1 means that you're in the top 330 fire departments in the whole United States. About 18 months ago, we became an ISO 1, meaning that we're in the top 1% of the United States. Our quest with police is to be the same thing. We want to be the very best. There are all kinds of measurements that takes. We came here to listen to you today, but I would like to take just a moment and tell you a couple of major challenges that we have. Every year, we have about 50 to 60 police officers turnover. So that means that 50 to 60 new guys out there on the street, that we've been trying to train. That's a big challenge. But that's the way it is, but that's one of the things that we deal with. In the last 6.5 years, our policemen have gotten, I think it's 5 raises. But you know, even after 5 raises, they were among the lowest paid police in the United States. So we gave them a significant raise. And even after we gave them a significant raise, they still are only, they're not where they should be, let me put it that way. Because they can train in Mobile, stay here 2 or 3 years, and go to Daphne and make more money. But I hope that doesn't sound like I'm whining or complaining, but those are the challenges, among some of the challenges that we're facing. But I can promise you, every single day that we wake up, we are trying to figure out a way to do a better job. And all I can say is that when we get back, you know, and after we have had all this input over the last 90 days, we're going to report to you. And I'm just hopeful that that will put us on a pathway that will be pleasing in the community, and so that we can work together to make Mobile a better place to live. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
There's a motion, a second, any discussion? Absent any discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.